Hi there, guys, and welcome to this edition of the Weiss Crypto Sunday Special with me, your host, Chris Coney. My guest analyst today is Alex Benfield from Weiss Ratings. Alex, how are you doing today, mate?
Hey, I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing excellent, excellent. So we're going to discuss today for our macro topic, we're going to talk about the different types or different ways with which businesses can engage with crypto, whether that be crypto only, crypto enabled, or virtual businesses. So we're going to talk about all this sort of stuff. So this was inspired by one of Anthony Pompliano's newsletters, where he talks about this company, Metromile. And he says it's an insurance-based fintech-powered insurance company that uses data science and machine learning. And they've just announced that they will be allowing their customers to pay their insurance premiums and accept insurance claim payouts in Bitcoin, but not exclusively. So that's the first example of a crypto-enabled business, right? They've added crypto on, right? And you and I was just talking about, well, what's the difference between a crypto-enabled business and a crypto-only business? So let's pick it up there. Can we think of any crypto-only businesses, and is that even possible?
Right. So, I mean, a crypto-only business is a business that's solely operating on the basis of a cryptocurrency as opposed to running their bottom line in reserve currency like the US dollar.
Mm-hmm.
You have bills to pay.
Yep.
Most companies pay their bills in, their local currency.
Sure.
And there's not a whole lot of, I don't think the infrastructure is really there for a company to run on only crypto right now. I think there may be some places where it's a little more possible than others. But I mean, there's expenses that you don't really think of right off the bat that you need a local fiat currency in order to operate. Like, let's say paying taxes. Yes, you can pay taxes with crypto in some areas,
right?
But that's not really that common.
It's not.
Right. Not to mention, you have rent to pay. You have office supplies. That I'm sure you could probably find a crypto-enabled business that would allow you to pay.
So we could call it what we call it, the supply chain. Let's call it that, right? In your supply chain, it's going to break at some point. When I mean break, I mean there's going to be a point where you interact with a supplier, employee, or someone that you want to pay that doesn't accept crypto, right? And of course, we're in the middle right now between, and people complain about adoption, but I think that's a really silly objection, because you can't have adoption before you have adoption. And the only way you get adoption is by getting adoption, right? And there's going to be, when it starts, none, and halfway through there's going to be some, and eventually there's going to be total adoption. So we're sort of in this transitional period where the supply chain does break.
I think you need infrastructure adoption first. Okay. You need the ability to be a crypto-only business. And so how does that start? Well, it starts with, crypto-enabled businesses. Mm-hmm. Like you have to start out with the option to pay in, fiat or current or cryptocurrency. Mm-hmm. And then once you have a supply chain that's heavily crypto enabled, it's going to open up the door for some businesses to try out a crypto only model.
Very true. That's very true. Same with consumers as well, right?
Right. I mean, if I wanted to run a crypto only business, first of all, you have to make sure that you can build out your organization with a team full of people that are willing and able to operate off of cryptocurrency based salaries.
Right, exactly.
Which I think that, that's done. I think there's plenty of teams that are partial cryptocurrency payments, but I don't know how many are 100% cryptocurrency only salaries. So first you have to get over that hurdle, but then like I said, you're running into things like office supplies, rent, taxes. Those are the things that are going to be a little bit harder to get by with just cryptocurrency payments.
Absolutely. The individual is part of the supply chain as well. So say you manage to get all your suppliers on a business to business level to accept crypto. Well, your employees might take 100% of their salary in crypto, but then they can't pay their rent in crypto, and there's the break, right? So unless you've got an entire closed system.
Right, there's the break. I mean, I think from an employee's perspective, at the moment, the only way I'm going to take a cryptocurrency only salary is if I think that I have enough money already to just go ahead and pay my lifestyle with my existing fiat. And yeah, I think there are some employees like that just want to maximize their exposure to cryptocurrency, but those are few and far between right now.
That's a good one, actually. So think about that as an individual. If, like there's a lot of these NFL players now that are taking their all or part of their salaries in Bitcoin, right? Well,
right.
Depends what you think Bitcoin is. If you take the store of value case, you could just do the, it's almost like salary sacrifice.
Right. You know but I mean? Not everybody is operating off of an NFL player's income basis. Well, so a lot of those players, they're taking all their game day paychecks in cryptocurrency. Mm-hmm. But they're also making money on the side through sponsorships, partnerships. They have other revenue streams, and those, I think, those revenue streams are what they're using to pay for their lifestyle.
I'm with you, but the amount to me doesn't matter though, because it's just basic financial management. If you have 100% of your income, whether that's $1 million a year or $10,000 a year, if you decide to take a portion of it, 5 to 10%, and invest it, right? That's the same. That's the same as getting paid the $10,000 and investing $1,000 in Bitcoin. That's the same as saying, "Hey, Mr. Employer, pay me the $9,000 in fiat and pay me the other $1,000 in Bitcoin." It's the same at the end of the day. You're sacrificing 10% of your salary to invest it in crypto, and then that does move over to businesses. You start with 100% of your sales coming in fiat payments, and then that percentage starts, however quick that happens, 1% of it's coming in crypto, and eventually maybe it's 50-50 eventually. I don't know. What do you think about that?
Correct. Yeah. I think maybe that'll help speed along this shift from crypto enabled to crypto only, is if employers are willing to pay partial cryptocurrency based salaries. Like you said earlier, it's a step-by-step process. And I think there's a lot of steps in between where we are now and when we have the correct environment for crypto only businesses. There's a lot of things that have to happen between now and then.
And ultimately taxes is the one, right? Because unless that's sort of the last bastion where you would have to convert your Bitcoin into fiat to pay your tax bill. And also depends on how tax is charged. In the UK right now, it's like if I receive payment in Bitcoin for something, I have to account for the income in British pounds at the moment it hits my wallet. Whether I sell it or not, it doesn't matter. If I receive £1,000 worth of Bitcoin, that's £1,000 of income, no matter what I do with it thereon, right? So going on to the adoption thing, there's a quote here from the director of this insurance company that's starting to take and pay out insurance premiums in Bitcoin. And it says here, we've considered Bitcoin as a payment option for years, and finally, the technology and the consumer adoption of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies have caught up. This isn't just a marketing move, which I find that kind of fascinating, because you could, I'm sure there are some businesses out there going, "Oh, we're going to take crypto just because it gets us in the headlines and all that malarkey." But he's specifically saying that is not the case here.
Right. I think there's some marketing benefits from accepting crypto as payments. That being said, I don't think making that move is worth it for anybody that's just doing it for the marketing aspect. First of all, you'll get some good exposure to crypto-friendly community by accepting crypto as payments. But I think you're probably going to get plenty of negative feedback as well from traditional investors and people who don't support cryptocurrency. So if you're doing it just for marketing basis, I think perhaps you're a bit misaligned.
Sure. Well, that's a good point, actually. So there's two camps, isn't there? There's people that aren't in crypto yet that are against it for whatever reason. And then there are people who have crypto that want more ways to use it. So going back to Anthony Pompliano here, he says, if individual citizens are putting a higher percentage of their net worth into digital assets, the businesses they interface with will have to become more favorable towards those assets. That's interesting, because the demand is coming from the crypto investors who want to do something with that money. So the entrepreneurs will just, serve the market demand if it exists, and the demand's coming from the customer side. So if people want to buy their insurance with Bitcoin, then take the payments in Bitcoin.
Right. I mean, at the end of the day, the people that are pushing back against accepting cryptocurrencies, they're the old guard, and they're eventually going to capitulate to cryptocurrency, as most people believe it's the system of the future. And the companies that are willing to take that step earlier and become early adopters, accept crypto as payments now, try to make that move into a crypto-enabled business, they're going to receive positive feedback from the cryptocurrency community. But not only that, they're going to be seen as thought leaders, and people that are willing to take that step earlier than the rest of the industry. And I think that, at some point, people are going to look back and respect these companies for taking that move before it's seen as an industry standard.
Yeah, and then it won't make the headlines anymore, will it? If it's just the cost of entry or it's just accepted, it'll look silly if you make an announcement that you now accept Visa as payment. You're like, so what? Everyone accepts Visa. So if it gets to that point, we know we've arrived at full adoption.
Right. It is a little silly that every time a company buys into crypto right now, it makes headlines. It reminds me of, when big time traditional investors would get into the space and buy Bitcoin a couple of years ago, that would make headlines. It was big news because now this traditional investor is realizing the value of cryptocurrencies, and they want to enter the space. And in the last few months, those announcements aren't really making headlines or anything like that any longer. Now people are paying attention to when companies get into the space. And I think maybe in a couple of years, we'll look back and kind of laugh at how silly it is that we're celebrating every single company that finally capitulates into crypto. Just because, as adoption picks up, you don't need to celebrate every little milestone as much as we do right now.
Absolutely. I don't know if you saw this spot on CNBC with Stan Druckenmiller, who he actually quotes himself. He says, 5 or 6 years ago, I was saying that crypto was a solution looking for a problem. I've never agreed with that per se. I just, but now he's saying that he expects the US dollar to lose its status as the world's reserve currency. Now that does link back into the topic of today's episode in regards to crypto only or crypto enabled businesses, because let's just use Bitcoin, if Bitcoin became the new reserve currency and was the currency of international trade, everyone de facto has to become crypto enabled just to trade in global commodities, right? What do you think to that?
I mean, absolutely, you're right. If somehow Bitcoin becomes global reserve currency, everybody's going to have to accept Bitcoin, and most likely other cryptocurrencies as well. I did see that Stanley Druckenmiller piece. Thought it was pretty interesting. His original quote from 5 or 6 years ago as Bitcoin being a solution to a problem that doesn't exist is a little bit silly, but I think he's finally figured out, what problem Bitcoin is a solution to at this point, being the current monetary system. And it's interesting, it took him 5 or 6 years to get to that point, whereas most traditional crypto believers have kind of always realized that was the whole purpose of Bitcoin, of cryptocurrencies as a whole. But hey, it's good. Now, like I said, now you got another traditional investor that's kind of starting to realize the ethos of the space. Not only have they adopted cryptocurrencies, but they're understanding the ethos of the space. And hopefully that helps other corporations, other traditional investors to change their thought perspective on cryptocurrencies, and maybe stop looking at crypto as like a child's game, and maybe realize like the true, I don't know where I'm going with that one.
That's okay. We'll let him cut it there.
We'll have to edit that one.
So that actually leads us on to, I wrote down governments, right? So that's actually the next link in the chain here. If the dollar loses its world reserve currency status, and if BTC takes over that crown, well, then governments become crypto enabled as well, right? Now, the notion of the whole world becoming crypto only, I don't think many people think that's idealist. It is idealistic and probably not the way it's going to go. I don't even think Saifedean Ammous, the author of the Bitcoin Standard, thinks that will happen, because I'm reading the Fiat Standard that he's writing right now, and he does say, look, the Fiat Standard and the Fiat payment rails, they do have some benefits, right? So it's probably going to be around, like the US dollar and fiat currencies are not going to go away entirely, but they will be alongside a digital asset system that we have now. So why am I saying that? Because that means that governments will end up being, what should we call them? Dual currency. They'll have cryptos and then they'll have fiats of their own making.
Right. I mean, I guess whether or not governments become crypto only is subjective to how you would classify a central bank to digital currency.
Very true. That's a good one. Yeah.
So is that crypto or is that fiat?
That's a very good point.
Because I do think that paper money is probably on its way out. First of all, even if you're just throwing cryptocurrencies out of the picture here, I think after 2020 and the coronavirus, use of paper money has drastically dropped. Not that many people and younger generations are really using cash. Most everybody pays with card anywhere they go. So I think paper money is kind of on its way out. And with that, that's there is an entire payment system based around paper money. I mean, perhaps you're not going to have cashiers with hundreds of dollars in paper bills at every counter that you go to. So, I mean, that's in and of itself. Like I said, I think really the big deal is whether or not how you classify CBDCs. I personally think that governments are already making moves towards that digital currency space. It's just, I struggle to see the difference between a fiat and a CBDC. I mean, I think CBDC is essentially just digital fiat.
I just wrote that down. The question is, are stable coins fiat currency? I say yes.
Exactly. Tether right now, or USDC. I just had this argument yesterday. It's essentially already a fiat currency.
Okay.
I mean, it is a central bank digital currency. It's just not controlled by the central bank. Central bank doesn't control the issuance of a CBDC.
It's a very good call.
But when they go to print, when the government prints $2 trillion or $4 trillion, whatever, they also have kind of affected the supply of Tether or USDC. They haven't affected the supply, but they have kind of watered down every Tether in existence.
Very true. Yeah, it's good. I mean, it's a good point. That makes you think that, like Tether, they even admit actually in the terms of service that it's not fully backed by US dollars. Some of it's backed by debt. It's that every USDT token is worth $1 of assets. That's like debt obligations or actual dollars, etc. So we know how fractional reserve banking works. Well, that's just fractionalizing dollars even further into the crypto space, right? So it's not exactly that the Federal Reserve increases the supply of USDT, but they do dilute the purchasing power of it by creating more underlying dollars, right?
Right. Yeah, and the thing is, right now, stable coins are kind of necessary in order to onboard people and bring on money from traditional banks and bring it into the crypto space. Who knows? Perhaps like crypto enabled companies and crypto based salaries might help reduce our need for stable coins and perhaps CBDCs.
Absolutely. So just skipping back to the using crypto as payment, crypto enabled businesses thing, there's Tesla doing their announcement that they were accepting crypto as payment for their cars and also using it on their balance sheet as a treasury asset. And then today decides to change their mind. And while they're keeping the Bitcoin on their balance sheet, they decide they are no longer going to accept Bitcoin as payment for their cars. And this is a change of mind within a month. So I'm like, what are they up to?
Right. I don't know. It's interesting news. So they have announced that they're not accepting crypto as payment for Tesla cars, although they never sold one single Tesla for Bitcoin, which is interesting in and of itself, that they would make that announcement a month ago and then take it back a month later. But they did also mention that they're keeping all of the Bitcoin on their balance sheet and they don't plan to sell it right now. So again, it's another interesting development. And they're doing this for environmental reasons and basically just saying that crypto mining is bad for the environment. This is a bit ironic considering Elon Musk's company's use of energy. I'm not sure if Bitcoin mining is any worse for the environment than rocket fuel. So again, it's a bit interesting. Not to mention the fact that most crypto mining comes from renewable energy. I think the statistic is something like 70% of crypto mining uses renewable energy. I think such a new industry like cryptocurrency, most of the people in this space are already environmentally focused. They want to reduce dependence on fossil fuels. They're already looking for renewable energy sources. So my point being that I think cryptocurrency is already a forward-thinking industry as far as energy dependence. This whole argument against Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies because of their use of energy is a bit misguided, I guess.
What doesn't make logical sense about this, what Tesla have done is, it's like, hang on. So the logic is Bitcoin is too environmentally unfriendly to be used to accept as payment, but it's quite all right to use as the treasury reserve asset. Like, that makes absolutely no sense to me whatsoever. And to me, smacks of that really isn't the reason why they made this decision, because it doesn't actually make logical sense.
I don't know. Something tells me that there were some investors or some board members in Tesla that just were not happy with the company's adoption of Bitcoin. And this is Elon Musk's half-assed attempt to please those partners. Right. I'm not too sure, but yeah, they didn't really take a hard line on it. If you're keeping Bitcoin on your balance sheet, it means you have some belief in Bitcoin.
Right. I didn't know you just said that they didn't actually sell any Teslas to customers who paid in Bitcoin. Now, that's interesting. If that's true, why didn't they make the announcement on that basis and say, well, we tried it for a month and no one's actually paid us in Bitcoin, so we're pulling it, right? Maybe it was a virtue signal at the same time, perhaps. I don't know.
I don't know. That's just kind of how I'm leaning towards it. I think it's an announcement that doesn't really carry a whole lot of weight.
Sure.
And interesting enough that a lot of people think that announcement has moved the markets. Markets dropped about 10% after that announcement. I'm not too sure if those things are correlated, I guess they're correlated, but not really sure if the market drop is caused by this announcement.
So in response to Tesla saying this about them seizing the acceptance of payment in Bitcoin, many people on both sides are upset, the crypto people and the non-crypto people. Most people are unhappy about his their perceived flip-flopping attitude towards Bitcoin. One minute is seen to be supporting it, and then the other minute is, seen to be damaging it. So people are like, well, what's his intention? Does he have his heart in the right place? So that sort of brings us on to people who are more consistent. Like you were talking about Michael Saylor. So how does he contrast against the Elon Musk in the space?
Right. I mean, Michael Saylor, CEO of MicroStrategy, made his announcement of adopting Bitcoin earlier, and I believe it was late 2020. Mm-hmm. And he's just kind of been constantly buying Bitcoin, dollar cost averaging since that point in time. He came out with a pretty strong statement of why he believed Bitcoin was currency of the future and why the company was adopting Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. And he's stuck to that point up until now. And not only that, he's kind of tried to educate other industry leaders, tried to bring other companies into the space. He's doing his share and spreading Bitcoin adoption. And I think my point really is that we need more people like Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy and less Elon Musks and Charlie Mungers who are really just spreading misinformation about cryptocurrencies and just not providing any value to anybody. I don't think. And especially with Elon Musk and Tesla's announcement here, honestly, it seems more like a marketing or publicity stunt than. I don't believe that they ever truly believed in Bitcoin. They certainly had a different approach to it than MicroStrategy. And yeah, I mean, you either believe in cryptocurrencies as a company and you're going to make a commitment to accept them as payments, and you're going to do your best to fill your balance sheet with as much cryptocurrencies as possible, or you don't really believe in cryptocurrencies and you're just kind of virtue signaling in order to accept or to not accept cryptocurrencies. Mm-hmm. And I don't really think we need any of that. We need companies that are either for or against cryptocurrencies. And obviously, I think looking back, when people are looking back 50 years from now, they're obviously going to look with a better light at the companies that are early on and accepting cryptocurrencies, as opposed to these investors in these companies that are kind of turning an ignorant, blind eye to it.
Absolutely, sure. And actually, that leads on to the individual approaches people have to investing at large. Like, I've noticed a lot of Gen Z people have an investing strategy that leans much more towards investing in what they believe in, right? Which that's like, I mean, it's always been the case in financial markets that whatever you philosophically think or believe, you just put your money where your mouth is and let it play out. And that's why there's a lot of criticism, even of the debates online about Bitcoin or not Bitcoin. It's like, look, that there's no point just talking about it. If you believe in it, put your money where your mouth is. If you don't. And then someone's going to be right objectively in time, right? So I don't know what everyone's
short it.
If you don't short it, exactly, that's the kind of put your money where your mouth is in the opposite direction. At least you've got something at stake. And if you're not willing to put something at stake, you might have to question how much conviction you have in your belief. So there we go. So I think that's a nice place to end it, Alex. Thanks very much for joining us today. So anything else you got to say before we go?
No, just thank you for having me today.
You're very welcome, sir. You're very welcome. Well, that's all for this week's edition of the Weiss Crypto Sunday Special. Great insights from Alex there. I look forward to when he's on next time. So keep an eye on your inbox for the next episode of the Weiss Crypto Sunday Special. Until then, it's me, Chris Coney, saying bye for now.